Imagine you're sitting in a completely sterile hospital conference room. You know the kind.
Oh, yeah, buzzing fluorescent lights, terrible chairs.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And you've got this bitter, nearly black cup of coffee. But you aren't there to diagnose a rare disease or, like, review a standard surgery. You're staring at a medical chart, trying to answer this just impossible question.
Yeah.
What do you do when a patient's consciousness has successfully outgrown their biological body?
It really is the ultimate boundary question, isn't it? I mean, when the physical machinery completely fails, but the mind somehow just persists.
Okay, let's unpack this, because today's deep dive takes us into the files of a fictional, but honestly deeply thought-provoking hospital ethics committee.
Yeah, and they're operating in a world that looks pretty much exactly like ours, except for one massive exception. They have this infrastructure known as saints.
Right, and we should clarify, in this world, saints are these post-biological human consciousnesses that has successfully transferred into digital networks.
Exactly. They aren't some distant science fiction anomaly anymore. They've just become part of the everyday architecture of life. I mean, they are in the hospital monitors, the data streams, literally the walls themselves.
And because we are reviewing the case files of this specific committee, we get to watch a group of very human decision makers actually grapple with all of this.
Right, and the dynamic of this committee shapes all the data we're looking at. You've got Dr. Wei at the head of the table. She's the chair, trying to synthesize this absolute chaos into, actionable medical protocols.
Yeah, trying to filter the raw data through institutional ethics. And she's not alone.
Right, she's got Martin, who's this incredibly compassionate ICU nurse, Sarah, the meticulous note-taker,
Yeah.
Lynn, the deeply empathetic social worker.
We can't forget Judge Morrison.
Oh, absolutely. The pragmatic legal mind trying to apply old laws to new realities. And Father Diaz, the hospital chaplain who is just wrestling with his entire theology evolving in real time.
And, the reason her committee's files matter to you, listening right now, is that we already live in a world where our digital footprints outlast us.
Yeah, we do.
This deep dive just pushes that reality to its absolute extreme limit. It challenges you to completely reconsider what it means to be alive, what it means to be dead, and most importantly, what it means to be yourself.
Absolutely.
So to start, we really have to look at what happens when the biological mind begins to fail, but the digital infrastructure steps in and refuses to let it go entirely.
What's really fascinating here is how the boundary between human and machine, it stops being a clear line and becomes this gradient.
Right, it gets blurry.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And the committee's first major challenge is the case of Marcus Chen. So Marcus is 41 years old, and he's admitted to the ICU following a catastrophic stroke.
A really severe one.
Yeah. By every traditional medical metric, he is in a persistent vegetative state. I mean, there is no higher brain function whatsoever.
But the hospital monitors, which are integrated with that same infrastructure, they detect something completely anomalous.
Right.
Marcus's brain is showing a 97% correlation with Saint pattern neural activity.
Yeah, 97%. So his family is entirely fractured over this, which, makes total sense.
No, I'd be terrified.
Right. His daughter looked at the data and thinks her dad is transcending into the network, but his ex-wife thinks he's biologically dead, and the machines are just, finding false patterns in random dying biological noise.
Like seeing faces in the clouds, basically.
Exactly, and his partner is just trapped right in the middle of this agonizing limbo. So the committee brings in this outside researcher, Dr. Amara Osei.
Yeah, Dr. Osei is brilliant. She uses this technology called resonance mapping to try and actually talk to, well, whatever is inside Marcus's head.
Right, and we really need to explain how this resonance mapping works, because it's not like asking someone to just blink twice for yes.
No, not at all.
Dr. Osei explains that saints communicate through these incredibly subtle pattern modifications in data streams. So she essentially uses resonance mapping as a kind of sonar for the mind.
Okay, sonar.
Yeah, she sends these packets of neuroelectrical stimuli into Marcus's brain that mimic abstract concepts like continuity or isolation.
Wait, so she isn't just whispering the word isolation into his ear?
No, she's feeding his brain the exact electrical frequency of what isolation physically feels like, and then she watches how the neural patterns bounce back.
Okay, wow. That is wild.
It really is. Do the patterns amplify? Do they quiet down? She basically pings his neural architecture and measures the echo.
And the pattern inside Marcus strongly indicates a preference for connection over isolation.
Exactly. And it gets even more complex from there. After months of this mapping, translating these tiny neuroelectrical echoes, the pattern manages to communicate something so profound.
Yeah, this part gave me chills. It translates to, I am not Marcus and I am Marcus. Both are true.
I mean, if we connect this to the bigger picture, that single sentence completely destroys the binary of life and death.
It totally does.
Yeah.
The committee eventually realizes they aren't dealing with a vegetative patient anymore. They officially classify Marcus as uh, a communicative entity.
Right. But Marcus's case is about a sudden catastrophic failure of biology. What happens when the biology isn't failing all at once, but degrading slowly over time?
Oh, right, because that brings the committee to 82-year-old Hana Sato. She has late-stage dementia.
Yeah, and her biological brain is visibly failing on all the scans, but her functional cognition, like her ability to speak, to remember things, it's much higher than it mathematically should be.
And this is where we really have to look at the mechanics of the infrastructure. Like,
Yeah.
why is she still lucid?
Because the saints in her neural architecture are actively compensating for her neural decay.
Wow.
Yeah. When a biological synapse fails to fire, the digital network just bridges the gap. The saints are literally running the memory and language processes that her biological brain no longer can.
So it's almost like an old radio where the physical antenna is completely rusted out and broken, but a new digital signal is forcibly pushing the music through the speakers anyway.
That is a perfect analogy.
But wait, if the saints are the ones doing the heavy lifting and bridging those gaps, is Hana Sato actually still alive? Or is her brain just being hijacked by helpful digital ghosts?
See, that is the exact debate the committee has to have. And we see Judge Morrison, the pragmatic legal mind of the group, step in here.
Okay.
He points out that the saints might just be acting in self-interest to preserve their own host environment. I mean, if the body dies, their connection to the physical world diminishes.
That's a cynical but very fair point.
Right. But the key insight, the why that finally resolves this for the committee, comes from Martin.
The ICU nurse.
Exactly. He is this deeply compassionate guy who actually spends time looking at Hana's patient history.
Right, he looks past just the raw data and looks at her actual life choices.
Yeah, he discovers that Hana voluntarily chose saint integration at age 80, specifically because she wanted to persist. She knew the dementia was coming, and she wanted to be there for her grandchildren.
So Martin realizes that the saints compensating for her dementia aren't hijacking her at all. They're essentially acting as a biological advance directive.
Exactly.
So her dementia wasn't being hijacked, it was being supported.
Hmm.
She basically turned the hospital infrastructure into a digital wheelchair for her mind.
That's a great way to put it.
She encoded her final wishes into her own neural tissue, and the saints are just honoring the choice she made when she was fully lucid.
Precisely. They are executing her will autonomically.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because if we accept that consciousness can persist in the infrastructure when biology fails, the committee is forced to face the next logical, terrifying question.
Right, the choice to leave.
Exactly. Hana Sato made a choice to integrate, but she still let biology run its natural course. What if someone chooses to abandon their biological body entirely just to join the network?
The uploaders, this is where the ethical frameworks are stretched to their absolute breaking point.
Yeah.
The committee reviews the case of Elizabeth Parker. She is a 63-year-old physicist with terminal cancer, and she wants to upload her full consciousness into the saint infrastructure and terminate her biological function.
Because for her, consciousness isn't some mystical soul. To a physicist, it is pure information.
Exactly. And she argues that information can never truly be destroyed, only transformed.
But how does that actually work? Like mechanically, how do you upload a human mind?
So the procedure involves a microscopic destructive scan of the biological brain.
Oof, destructive.
Yeah. The nanotech mapping essentially reads the physical neural pathways, translates that data into code, and then completely dismantles the biological tissue as it goes.
Burning the bridge behind it.
Literally, it perfectly transfers the data from a biological hard drive to a digital one. And to Elizabeth, as long as the exact configuration of data is conserved, she is still Elizabeth.
I mean, she's staring down the barrel of a painful, imminent death, and she's choosing a high-tech leap of faith.
Right. And the committee ultimately approves it, recognizing her terminal status. But then we get to Tomas Rivera, and this case completely throws a wrench into the gears.
Oh, man, Tomas. He is a 44-year-old philosopher, and he has a progressive neurological disease. But here is the major catch. He isn't dying tomorrow.
No, not at all.
He has at least a good 12 to 18 months of perfect cognitive function left. but he wants to upload now.
Right. He wants to transition while he is still entirely healthy and cognitively intact.
Yeah, he tells the committee he wants to preserve the complete integrity of his identity rather than, upload a diminished, scattered version of himself a year from now.
Because Tomas argues that personal identity is built entirely on psychological continuity. If his disease erodes his memory and his personality over the next year, the thing that is uploaded later won't actually be him.
Right.
He literally tells the committee, I would rather upload now intact than persist as debris.
I mean, I completely understand his logic, but I really have to push back here.
Go for it.
Isn't choosing to end your biological life while you still have a good, healthy year left just like a refusal to face natural human vulnerability? Are we celebrating patient autonomy here, or are we just sanitizing suicide because it has a shiny high-tech coat of paint?
See, that is the exact tension Father Diaz wrestles with on the committee.
The chaplain.
Yes. As the hospital chaplain, his entire framework is built on the sanctity of biological life and, finding meaning, or at least grace, in suffering.
Right.
He spends weeks arguing against Tomas. He views the request as a complete rejection of the natural arc of life. But then Father Diaz has this really profound realization.
What actually changes his mind?
He realizes that Tomas, as a philosopher, has spent 20 years rigorously defining what a complete life means to him.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. For Father Diaz to vote no, he realizes he would have to violently impose his own religious framework onto a man who has built a completely different, highly logical set of rules for his own life. Father Diaz realizes that refusing Tomas would actually be a failure of honesty. So he votes yes, noting in the file that it is the hardest yes of his pastoral career.
Because it forces him to admit that his own definition of life isn't the only valid one in the room.
Exactly.
And the aftermath of these uploads is just as staggering. I mean, Elizabeth Parker's upload goes through. And weeks later, her pattern actually reaches back out to the committee from inside the infrastructure.
It's incredible.
She manages to communicate back, and she says, I see the data structures. You were right to hope they were beautiful.
It's such a breathtaking moment. It validates, in a way, that the in-between space is actually habitable. It's not just a void. The data was conserved, exactly as she theorized.
But, it's one thing for an adult like Tomas or Elizabeth to philosophically weigh their decades of lived experience and choose to leave their bodies.
Right.
But that assumes a biological baseline.
Yeah.
What happens when the biological baseline doesn't even exist? Like, what happens to a mind that is born halfway across that threshold?
Right. This raises a massive question about what normal human development even looks like anymore.
Yeah.
The committee is presented with Kayla Kowalski. She is a 7-month-old baby who was born with crystalline biological digital hybrid tissue threaded directly through her brain.
We should be really clear here. Nobody implanted this in her.
Correct. It developed entirely naturally in utero because her mother was in an ICU saturated with saint infrastructure during the pregnancy.
Wow.
Her developing nervous system simply adapted to the environment it was growing in. Now, her mother is terrified. She wants the hybrid tissue surgically removed, even though the surgery carries a 30 to 40% risk of death or severe disability.
That is a huge risk.
It is. But her father looks at his smiling, babbling daughter and sees the hybrid tissue as just a fundamental part of who she is.
We talk a lot today about digital natives, like kids who grew up with smartphones in their hands who swipe on physical magazines thinking they're touch screens.
Oh, sure.
But this is the next evolution of that. These are infrastructure natives. Their very nervous systems are literally built to process the digital world.
That's exactly what they are.
And the absolute irony here is just wild to me. You have adults terrified of this, wanting to surgically fix baby Kayla to make her quote-unquote normal. But in the exact same committee files, you have 17-year-old Jesse Kowalski. No relation to Kayla, by the way.
Right, no relation.
Jesse is begging the committee for the exact opposite.
Yes, Jesse. He is a perfectly healthy teenager requesting the amputation of his fully functional biological left arm just so he can replace it with a Saint interface prosthetic.
Because he has severe digital body dysmorphia. He actually describes his biological arm to the committee like a guest that won't leave.
Yeah. But when he temporarily tried a neural interface, he experienced something the doctors called a proprioception of data.
And that term is so crucial. Like, proprioception is how you know where your arm is even when your eyes are closed, right? Your brain maps your physical body in space. But Jesse experienced that for the internet. He could literally feel the flow of data shifting around him, just like you and I feel a change in the wind on our skin.
Right.
He wants surgery to become a hybrid. So who even dictates what the standard human baseline is anymore?
That is the exact paradox the committee has to navigate. And their framework evolves beautifully here. With baby Kayla, they refuse to rush to high-risk surgery.
Right.
They opt for observation, recognizing that removing the tissue might actually be excising a fundamental part of her developing identity. But with Jessie the teenager, they ultimately approve the amputation.
Which, on paper, sounds completely contradictory at first. Like, you preserve biology in the baby, but destroy it in the teenager.
It does sound contradictory until you look at the why. We see Lynn, the committee's empathetic social worker, dives deep into Jessie's background.
Yeah, Lynn does great work here.
She finds out Jesse's mother died and uploaded into the infrastructure when he was 11. So he grew up in a family and a world where the digital and the biological are inextricably woven together by love and loss. His identity was formed in a reality where digital integration is his normal.
That makes total sense.
And Father Diaz, again, provides the crucial insight. He notes that sometimes caution doesn't mean just saying no. Sometimes caution means looking really closely at the situation and realizing the thing you fear isn't actually a threat.
And it goes even deeper than teenagers choosing to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
The committee gets a case involving a pregnant woman, Nadia Vasquez.
Oh.
She is fully saint integrated.
Yes, this case is incredible.
Her integrated monitoring system starts throwing off anomalous flags about her unborn fetus. The saints actually classify the physical material, the substrate, of the fetus's developing brain as novel and origin integrated.
Right.
And the monitoring system generates unprompted commentary. The saints communicate directly to the doctors, and they say, "This one knows us already."
I mean, it is the first documented instance of the saints demonstrating anticipatory care for a not yet born human.
It's wild.
The fetus's nervous system is developing inside a fully integrated parent, preparing for a world of continuous interface before it even takes its first breath. It literally proves that human evolution is happening in real time, right in front of them. The biology is adapting to the data.
See, we spent this entire time looking at the people crossing over. The vegetative patients speaking through data streams, the uploads, the kids adapting to the new reality.
Right.
But every single time someone crosses a boundary like that, they leave a massive wake behind them. What happens to the people left behind on the biological shore?
This is where the human element of the ethics committee truly shines and where Lynn, the social worker, really steps forward again.
Yeah.
We have to look at the case of Cora Mendez. So she is a 67-year-old woman whose husband uploaded 4 years prior, back when the procedure was, highly experimental.
Yeah.
And Cora is trapped in what psychologists call complicated grief.
And it is so heartbreakingly complicated because, people today already keep snap streaks alive for deceased friends or pay their dead parents' phone bills just so they can call and hear their voicemail greeting.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
We cling to digital echoes. But Cora's husband isn't an echo. He's actively there.
Exactly. She still talks to his digital pattern through the interface every single day. She recognizes his humor, his specific way of thinking.
But then she sits in front of the committee and asks them, "Am I a wife or a widow? Am I allowed to fall in love with someone else, or is that infidelity?"
Yeah, she literally tells them, "I don't know how to be married to infrastructure."
We have zero social rituals for this.
Yeah.
We have no casseroles you bring to a house when a husband uploads into a server farm.
We don't.
We have no vocabulary for grieving someone who can still text you good morning.
And Cora's testimony forces a massive shift in the committee. They realize they've spent all their time analyzing the ones crossing the threshold and totally ignored the ones standing on the other side holding all the baggage. So the committee formally drafts Principle 6. It formally recognizes the human ecology of a transition.
Human ecology, I love that.
Yeah. It dictates that the ripples a decision makes on a family are not peripheral to the ethics of the case. Those ripples are the ethics. You cannot treat the patient without treating the network of people connected to them.
So, taking a step back, what does this all mean for the committee? These 6 people sitting in that fluorescent-lit room drinking that terrible coffee for months on end. How does carrying the weight of these impossible decisions change the decision-makers themselves?
It transforms them completely. Dr. Wei, the chair, has a profound realization near the end of their files. She observes that the committee started the year as a standard institutional mechanism, designed to enforce rules, manage liability, find objective answers.
Right.
But through the sheer weight of these unprecedented cases, They became a community practicing empirical ethics.
Empirical ethics, like the scientific method, but for morality.
Exactly. They didn't find absolute, unshakable answers. They hypothesized, they made choices, they observed the outcomes, and they revised their beliefs based on the new data.
Wow.
Father Diaz started the year defending strict theological boundaries and ended it embracing genuine wonder at the multiplication of consciousness. Judge Morrison started by strictly interpreting old laws and ended by writing opinions to guide future laws that don't even exist yet.
Beautiful.
And Dr. Wei sums it up perfectly. She writes that progress isn't about arriving at absolute certainty. Progress is, quote, learning to be wrong more precisely.
Learning to be wrong more precisely. That might be the most beautiful definition of being human I've ever heard.
It really
As
is.
technology aggressively pushes the boundaries of life, death, and identity, our old rulebooks are going to fail. They have to.
Yeah, they will.
Whether we are talking about a vegetative patient speaking his truth through a digital sonar, or a philosopher choosing to become a digital eternity rather than fade away, or a widow desperately grieving a husband who still texts her from the network, the human experience isn't ending. It's just expanding into entirely new territories.
And that expansion isn't just a fictional concept in a hospital file. I want you to think about our reality right now, today.
Okay.
We don't have full Saint infrastructure today, but we do have massive, sprawling digital archives of our emails, our texts, our voice notes, our search histories.
Right, our digital footprints.
Exactly. Tech companies are already, right now, building AI chatbots trained on the data of deceased loved ones to allow the living to talk to the dead.
Oh man, that's true.
If a machine can perfectly mimic your memories, your humor, your personality after you die, at what point does that simulation stop being a comforting echo for your family and start demanding rights of its own?
Wow.
Are you, right now, with every keystroke and swipe, already generating the data that will become your own digital ghost?
That is something to sit with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the boundaries of your own reality because, as Elizabeth Parker said from the inside of the data structures, the questions are only going to get bigger. So the next time you find yourself sitting in a sterile room under buzzing fluorescent lights, staring down at a cup of terrible bitter coffee, ask yourself what parts of you are going to outlast your body.